I'll get started because I don't want to delay everybody, because I know everybody's eager to get to lunch. So I'm just going to talk to you for about 10 minutes to just set out kind of the UK's approach, UK government's approach to improving the security of consumer internet-connected devices. So just set out, I'm from the Department for Digital Culture, Media and Sport, and we are the lead department in the UK government for taking forward the UK's kind of approach on improving the security of consumer IoT devices. The strategic context, so in 2016 the UK government published its National Cybersecurity Strategy, which is a 5-year strategy. One of the objectives in that included ensuring that the UK is secure as a result of technology, products and services that are cyber secure by default. And that is kind of the overview of kind of the UK's approach and project under its Secure by Design initiative. Just to kind of set out the context, so in the UK, 42% of UK homes have a smart TV. There is the increasing use of smart speakers in the homes. That creates a significant challenge in terms of security. So you hear stories like smart fridges and baby monitors being compromised in security. I think you heard a little bit about that earlier on. And that kind of has a massive impact on undermining the trust of consumers in products and technology that they're using within their homes. One of the key kind of challenges that we face is how to improve that security. And one of kind of the key ways we are looking to do that is to work with manufacturers and industry to improve the level of understanding of like what good security looks like. So the UK's approach is its Secure by Design initiative, which some of you may have heard of. So we have kind of 3 strands which I'll come to talk to you about in a minute. But the project, kind of, this is how it looks like. Our objectives are to codify what good practice is and kind of ensure that manufacturers are aware of what good practice is. Ensuring that consumers and the wider economy are protected, and that includes kind of making it simple. So making it simple for manufacturers to actually implement good practice. And that includes kind of at a board level, which is a significant challenge that we face. And a kind of key driver behind the UK's approach is obviously the ministerial ambition as well. So at a kind of senior level in government, there is a clear objective that this is a serious issue and potentially has a huge impact in terms of leaving the UK vulnerable to large-scale cyber attack. And kind of we've seen things like DDoS and botnet as well. So that's kind of what we were seeking to protect against. The UK's approach is basically we published a report in March 2018 which set out a draft code of practice of what we kind of consider to be best practice principles for manufacturers. We've worked extensively with industry, so in particular we've worked with Professor David Rogers, who I'm sure you're all aware of, the National Cybersecurity Strategy, National Cybersecurity Centre within the UK, and also kind of an expert advisory group of industry to develop this code of practice. We published the final code of practice in October 2018, last year, and the code of practice sets out 13 best practice principles for manufacturers. So the aim is to kind of really make it simple and clear of what good practice looks like. One of the key kind of things that we have been focusing on is engaging internationally on what best practices. I think there's a key challenge there in terms of agreeing and implementing good practice across international supply chains. A key part of kind of my role is engaging with other governments and industry abroad to actually ensure that we are all implementing security to a high standard in the design of products from the start. One of the things with the code of practice is that it sets out 13 best practice principles. Again, it's really, really simple. As you can see there, there's kind of the the matrix there. The top 3 security requirements are in the middle. So you'll hear me kind of talk about how we are implementing that and kind of taking that forward. The code of practice itself is actually voluntary for industry. Obviously, we worked really closely with industry to actually develop it and make sure that the 13 best practice principles are implementable. So to kind of take that forward, we found that voluntary best practice wasn't necessarily kind of driving the results that we would need it to, and we're kind of looking further ahead. So in May 2019, we published a consultation which set out the UK's approach to mandating and regulating some of the proposals in the Code of Practice. In particular, we're focusing on the top 3, which are in the middle. So that includes no default passwords, ensuring that manufacturers assign a point of contact for their vulnerability disclosure policies, and also kind of ensuring manufacturers set out exactly how long a product or device is going to be supported by software updates. The key kind of rationale behind the UK government seeking to regulate in this area is because we feel that consumers weren't really taking responsibility for the security of their own devices and products, and also we kind of wanted to ensure that consumers were able to make informed choices when they were purchasing products and services. So just again goes back to kind of the stories that we heard about, the 3 stories that I had up there about devices being compromised, and so this seeks to kind of take that burden away from consumers and ensure that manufacturers are implementing that within the design of their products, rather than kind of it being a voluntary approach. So the consultation's closed now, but we are looking to kind of develop our policy response, so the government's policy response to the consultation by the end of the year. A key part of that will be looking at how do we engage retailers in these proposals, because obviously they're going to be a core part of kind of actually implementing any form of regulation that we do decide to, the UK government does decide to proceed with, and also kind of consumer awareness. So I think that's another key part of the UK's proposals, to kind of ensure that consumers are aware and educated about the security of their devices, and they're able to kind of differentiate between a device that is kind of meeting the basic security requirements against one that isn't, and kind of enabling them to make those informed choices. I think one of the kind of misconceptions there is that consumers often feel like their devices are already secure, and I think that's something that we are trying to kind of address through this, is to actually take that kind of misconception away and actually educate consumers about their devices and kind of let them know like what is secure within their product that they are purchasing and what isn't, and enabling them to kind of ensure that they are taking ownership of their own security a bit more. So the third part of the UK's kind of project on secure by design is international alignment. So I mentioned it earlier. A key kind of objective for us is to kind of promote what we consider to be good practice internationally. So we're working with a lot of governments and a lot of kind of industry partners abroad to develop alignment of what good practice is and make sure that we are all adhering to the same standards. I think in particular that the rationale behind this is because of international supply chains. You know, you have a device that has components manufactured in different countries. If one of those components is manufactured to a lower standard than the other components, then that compromises the whole device. So one of the things that we've been working on is with ETSI, ETSI have published a technical specification, which basically is based quite heavily influenced by the Code of Practice, and in particular the top 3 security requirements. One of the things that we are looking to work on for this year is to develop the technical specification into a technical standard, and also kind of looking to develop that further and potentially looking at developing an ISO standard around this as well. one of the key things that we're looking at is working with ETSI members to understand what more is needed through the specification to actually make it into a standard. And so we're kind of working very, very closely with ETSI to kind of take that forward. In particular, we're looking to publish a final standard, a version of the final standard. ETSI is looking to develop a final version of the standard by September this year. And that's kind of what our key focus is for this year, as well as kind of developing our policy response to the consultation. I think that's kind of a very high-level overview of kind of the UK government's approach, and that's it. If you require any further information, then those are the key links. That's the consultation, and that's the ETSI technical specification there. Thank you.